I never believed the stories people told about Pine Hollow Trail. Not the disappearances, not the strange radio calls, and definitely not the stories about hearing voices from people who weren't there. After 12 years working search and rescue for the National Park Service, I'd learned something important. Most mysteries have explanations. People get lost. People panic. People make bad decisions. The woods don't create monsters. At least, that's what I believed before the Callahan search. Before I found footprints that shouldn't have existed. Before I followed a missing hiker into a part of the forest that wasn't on any map. And before I heard my own voice calling to me from somewhere deep in the darkness. If you're listening to this late at night, here's a question. Have you ever been alone in the woods and suddenly felt like someone was watching you? Not because you saw anything, not because you heard anything, just that feeling, that cold certainty, like something had noticed you. That's exactly how this started. And looking back now, I wish I'd listened to that feeling. It was late October. The tourist season was winding down, and most of the summer crowds had disappeared. The mountains were quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes every snapped twig sound like a gunshot. I was finishing paperwork at the ranger station when dispatch called. A 27-year-old hiker named Daniel Callahan had failed to return from a day hike. Nothing unusual about that. It happened more often than people realize. Most missing hikers are found within a few hours, usually embarrassed, usually dehydrated, sometimes angry because they think the forest somehow moved the trail. Trust me, people will blame literally anything except their own sense of direction. By sunset, our search team was assembled. 6 rangers, 2 volunteers, 1 canine unit, standard procedure. The weather forecast predicted temperatures dropping below freezing overnight. That meant urgency. A lost hiker can survive being lost. A lost hiker in freezing temperatures, that's a different story. We began searching shortly after dark. Daniel's vehicle was still parked at the Pine Hollow trailhead. His backpack wasn't inside. Neither was his emergency gear. According to his wife, he was experienced, prepared, careful, the type of person who shouldn't have vanished. But people don't disappear because they're careless. Sometimes they disappear because they make one mistake, one wrong turn, one decision, one moment of bad luck. As we moved deeper along the trail, the canine picked up a scent almost immediately. Good sign. The dog pulled hard toward the northern ridge, the direction Daniel had reportedly planned to hike. Everything seemed routine, normal, until we found the first footprint. At first glance, it looked human, but something about it bothered me. The shape wasn't right. The stride wasn't right. And the deeper I looked, the more uncomfortable I became. The print was nearly 16 inches long. Far too large for Daniel. Far too large for anyone. Maybe somebody's messing around with fake tracks, one volunteer suggested. I wanted to agree. I really did. But fake tracks don't sink 6 inches into frozen soil. The footprint looked heavy, like whatever made it carried an impossible amount of weight. I remember staring at it longer than I should have. Something about it felt wrong. The same way you might look at a photograph and realize something is slightly off without knowing exactly what. Eventually, we continued, because that's what search teams do. You keep moving, you keep looking, and you ignore the little voice telling you something isn't right. Around midnight, we reached a section of forest where the trail narrowed between dense pine trees. The radio crackled, then died. Static swallowed every channel. Great, one ranger muttered. Exactly what we need. Everyone laughed. A quick joke, a tension breaker. Funny how humans do that. When things get scary, we make jokes. As if humor somehow keeps the darkness away. It doesn't. The woods remained silent. No wind, no animals, no distant sounds, nothing. And that's when the canine stopped moving. The dog froze. Completely. Its ears flattened, its tail tucked. Then it began backing away. Now, if you've never worked around search dogs, understand something. These animals are fearless. They crawl through ravines. They chase scents through storms. They don't get scared easily. But this dog looked terrified. The handler knelt beside it, tried calming it. The dog wouldn't move. It just stared into the trees ahead, watching, waiting, as though it saw something none of us could. And then, we heard a voice, faint, distant, almost lost in the darkness. Help. Every flashlight snapped toward the sound. The voice came again, weak, desperate. Please, help me, Daniel. Or at least it sounded exactly like Daniel. The team immediately moved toward the voice, but after only 30 yards, I noticed something strange. The voice wasn't getting closer. No matter how fast we moved, no matter how carefully we listened, it stayed the same distance away, always ahead, always just beyond reach. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. The voice wasn't calling for help anymore. It was calling our names. Mike. The voice drifted through the trees. Every member of the team froze. It wasn't asking for help anymore. It was calling us by name, one by one. The canine began growling and backing away. Then we saw a flashlight moving between the pines ahead. At first, I thought it was Daniel, but something felt wrong. The beam never moved from our faces. Whoever carried it seemed able to walk through dense forest without ever looking where they were going. We followed for nearly a minute before the light suddenly vanished. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. Then our radios crackled back to life. Dispatch informed us that another search team had located Daniel nearly a mile south of our position. For several seconds, nobody spoke. If Daniel was south, who had been calling to us from the north? We immediately changed course. The entire walk back felt wrong. Every so often, I'd hear footsteps, matching ours from somewhere beyond the trees. Whenever we stopped, they stopped too. Just before dawn, we reached the other team. Daniel was alive but badly shaken. Later, while giving his statement, he told us he had spent the night running from people who looked familiar. At first, he'd seen his wife standing between the trees, then his brother, then his father. Each one called his name and tried convincing him to follow them deeper into the forest. The closer he got, the less human they appeared, so he ran and hid until sunrise. The search officially ended that morning. A few weeks later, the northern section of Pine Hollow Trail was closed due to safety concerns. No further explanation was ever given. I've worked dozens of rescue operations since then. Most have logical explanations, some don't. But I still remember one thing. As our team left the forest that morning, I looked back one final time. Standing between the trees was a figure wearing a ranger uniform, watching us, motionless, too far away to identify. The moment I raised my flashlight, it stepped behind a tree and never came back out. I shouldn't have looked back at the tent, because what I saw standing outside it had my wife's face, but I knew my wife was sleeping inside the tent with me. That's the part I still can't explain. My name is Eric Lawson. I've been a park ranger for 15 years. I've seen people get lost, hurt, and terrified. But I've never seen a forest lie to people. Not until Black Cedar National Park. It started at the end of October, when the nights got longer and the tourists disappeared. That's when the first report came in. A woman at Pine Ridge campground called dispatch, her voice shaking so badly she could barely speak. She said someone was circling her tent, not walking past, circling, for over an hour. When I arrived the next morning, she was still shaken. But what stayed with me wasn't her fear. It was what she said next. It wasn't my husband outside. I asked her what she meant. She looked straight at me. My husband was sleeping next to me the entire time. I didn't say anything. I just wrote it down. Because in this job, you learned something early. People lie, or they get things wrong. But fear is usually real. A few days later, another camper reported footsteps. Same place, same pattern, same strange detail. So this time, I went myself. I wanted proof. Around 3:12 a.m., I reached their campsite. The couple was sitting outside their tent, completely still. The husband pointed into the dark. She's still out there. Who? I asked. My wife. I turned slowly. Their tent was zipped shut. His wife was inside, asleep. Then we heard it. A voice from the trees, calling his name. Soft, familiar, comforting. The man stood up, like he was in a trance. I have to answer her, he said. I grabbed his arm, and for a second, I swear the forest answered back. Not with sound, but with silence, like something had leaned in to listen. That night, I wrote in my report, strange sound imitation, increased patrols. I should have written something else, something simple. Get out of there. A week later, a teenager went missing on a day hike. He came back 12 hours later, 14 miles away. No memory. Just one sentence. It wasn't my friend calling me. Then he stopped talking about it. That's when I saw the pattern. Everyone who heard the voices heard someone they trusted. Someone dead. Someone far away. Someone impossible. And every time they followed it, they came back different. Not in their body, but in their mind. Like something had touched their thoughts. Then Ranger Thomas Reed went on patrol near Hollow Creek. He never came back. His last message was simple. I found the source. Pause, then static, then, oh God, it knows my voice. Silence. Search teams found nothing. No body, no gear, just an empty trail. 6 months later, I found his radio in a ravine, blood on the antenna, and a whisper still trapped inside it. Don't let it see you. Then the radio shut off by itself. That's when things got worse. Because now, it wasn't just voices in the woods. It was talking back. I was alone on patrol when my radio filled with static again. Then, Eric. I stopped walking. No one at dispatch calls me Eric, except one person. And he's been dead for 8 years. The radio said it again. Eric. Then another voice answered from inside it. Same tone, same sound. Like it was coming from the radio itself. You followed the voice too. I froze. The radio kept going. Thomas stayed. A pause. Kelly stayed. Another pause. You'll stay. I dropped the radio and ran. That's when I understood something terrible. It wasn't calling us into the forest. It was collecting us. The next morning, I went back to work like nothing happened. Because that's what you do when you don't have answers. You pretend you don't need them. 2 nights later, I responded to a report at Hollow Creek. That's where I saw the cabin. It wasn't on any map. It shouldn't have been there, but it was, half hidden in the trees, like it had been waiting. Inside, dust, silence, rotting wood. Then I saw the photos, dozens of them, on every wall. Campers, hikers, rangers, some smiling, some screaming. Then I saw Thomas Reed, standing in the woods behind something tall, something I couldn't fully see. Every time I blinked, his face in the photo looked slightly different, like the image couldn't decide what it remembered. Then I saw something worse, a photo from last week. Ranger Kelly Morgan, standing right outside the cabin, looking terrified, and behind her, a shape, not clear, not still, just there. Then my radio crackled again, inside the cabin. I froze. The radio on my belt answered itself. "You're early." I stepped back. The stairs creaked above me. One step, then another. "Eric." But this time, it wasn't just a voice. It was my voice, calling me. I looked up. Then the radio spoke again. "You came anyway." I should have run, but I didn't. I said, "Thomas." Silence. Then all the voices came at once. Every voice I had ever heard. Not loud, not chaotic, just calm, patient, waiting. Then the cabin changed. Small things at first, then wrong things. The hallway looked longer. The rooms no longer matched what I remembered. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A photo on the table. Fresh, still new. It was me, standing inside the cabin, taken from behind. I had never been here before. Then the stairs stopped creaking. Something stood at the top. I didn't look at it directly, because something inside me said, "If you understand it, it understands you." So I ran. The forest swallowed me. Behind me, the voices followed, not chasing, calling. Patient, always patient. I reached my truck and drove until the trees were gone. But it wasn't over. Next morning, I was called into dispatch. They looked confused when I walked in. My supervisor held a report. "Eric," he said, "we need you to explain something." He slid the paper over. It was a transmission log from Hollow Creek. Time, 4 minutes ago. Sender, Ranger Thomas Reed. I stared at it. "That's not possible," I said. "Thomas has been missing for 6 months." My supervisor frowned. "Eric." He checked in this morning. Silence. Then the radio on the wall crackled. A familiar voice came through. Calm, close, almost friendly. "Eric, we found the cabin again." I looked at the radio, then at the report, and realized something I wish I never understood. It wasn't lost in the forest. It was using the forest. And now, it knew my name.